How many SEC teams can make the college football playoff this season? That's the question I have for you today. Listen, if you're anti-SEC, you are going to really, really hate this video. But at the end of the day, I think there will be at least 2 SEC teams once again in the college football playoff, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, I have to plug DoorDash. For a limited time, our listeners at Dog Post can get 50% off a $20 value and $0 delivery fees when you download the DoorDash app and enter code DAWG, D-A-W-G. That's 50% off a $20 value and $0 delivery fee when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code DAWG. Don't forget, that's code DAWG, D-A-W-G, for 50% off a $20 value and $0 delivery fees with DoorDash. So, here's how I got to this, right? And listen, I know that this is way too early to be talking about this. It's not even Halloween. Georgia, Florida still hasn't kicked off yet. That's in a couple days, 3 days. But this is what we do. And you're crazy if you have not thought about this already. I know all of you have, right? So here's how Georgia gets in. I'm going to start with the top of the AP poll and go down. Georgia's obviously number 1 right now. And the path is pretty simple. If Georgia goes undefeated the rest of the regular season, they're in. You can write their name in the college football playoff. It does not matter what happens in the SEC championship game. Again, they lost last year. They got in. If they run the table in the regular season, I think the exact same thing is going to happen. Monster win over Oregon. Monster win over a currently ranked South Carolina team. If they go on the road and pound Florida like I think the rest of the Dog Post crew and myself think they will, if they beat number 3 Tennessee, go on the road, beat Mississippi State, a team kind of struggling right now. They look really bad against Alabama. Go on the road, beat Kentucky, and then just smash Georgia Tech's skull in. They're in. That's a pretty solid resume. They're number 1. They're the reigning champs. If they win out, they're in. Ohio State, they're kind of in the same boat. They go to Penn State this weekend. Navy Lions are 6-1. I expect Ohio State to take care of them. At Northwestern, who are 1-6, that's a win. Versus Indiana, who's currently 3-5, that's a win. At Maryland, who's 6-2, that could be a tricky game for the Buckeyes, but they're really good right now. They're playing very, very good football. They're tough to stop offensively. They're clearly the number 2 team in the country. In my opinion, they should take care of them. And then it comes down to the game with Michigan. I don't think the loser is going to sneak into the college football playoff like I think Tennessee could. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But if Ohio State runs the table, they're probably in. I don't see them losing in the Big Ten championship to Illinois. I think it's probably the team in the West who's going to win that region. So Ohio State is looking like they're in a good spot. If they run the table, they might be in, even with a loss to Illinois. But if other teams start to make a lot of teams like TCU might not like that, Oregon, so on and so on. But I think Ohio State's in. Let's talk about Tennessee, ranked number 3. They've got Kentucky this weekend, who are 5-2. Tennessee should win that game. A lot of people are putting them on upset alert. Not at 7 p.m. in Neyland Stadium. Not going to happen. At Georgia, we're going to talk all about that game, obviously, for the next 2 weeks. Versus Missouri, who's 3-4, at South Carolina, who are 5-2. That could be a tricky game, and then they're going to beat Vandy at home. If Tennessee loses to Georgia and doesn't have to play in the SEC championship game, they might slide in. And I would probably give them the benefit of the doubt. If they play Georgia tough in Athens, barely lose, and that's their only loss to number 1 Georgia team, it's going to be hard to keep Tennessee out. A lot of people think they should be number 1 right now. I think it's crazy, but that's how highly a lot of media members and people across the country feel about Tennessee right now, even though they're giving up a bunch of points left and right. It's another topic for another day, but if Tennessee loses to Georgia and that's it, I think Tennessee could sneak in there. Michigan, number 4, they host Michigan State this weekend, who are 3-4. They should win that game. At Rutgers, who are 4-3, should win that game. Nebraska, 3-4 the next week. They should win that game. Versus Illinois, who's 6-1. They can run the football. They're playing good right now. Are playing well right now. Could be a tricky game, but Michigan should win that game. They got better players. They should win that game. Then it's at Ohio State. Does the loser of that game, are they able to sneak into the playoff? I don't think so. I don't see it as likely as the loser of Georgia Tennessee getting in, but they're going to need some help. They're going to need teams like Clemson to lose. Alabama, if they run out, I'm going to talk about them in a second. They're in. So that eliminates a few teams probably. TCU, if they go undefeated, you're not going to keep them out. So Michigan would need a little bit of help if they lose to Ohio State and get in. But I think they're going to run the table in the regular season. Who knows? Maybe they trip up against Illinois and then they're done. We'll see. Michigan in a little bit of a tough spot, but if they win, they're in. So, they still have everything ahead of them. Clemson, number 5. It's going to be tough to keep an undefeated Clemson out of the college football playoff. Are they a top 4 team? No. I don't think anyone thinks they're a top 4 team the way they've been playing. I love a good conspiracy theory. I'm all on board with the refs screwing over Syracuse, helping Clemson to stay undefeated and have a chance in the playoff. Write me down as part of that conspiracy theory. I think it's a good one because I saw the calls that were made and they definitely went Clemson's way, or else they lose to Syracuse and their season's done. If Clemson loses one game, they're done. They have at Notre Dame, who are 4-3. The Irish are not good. Then they get Louisville at home. Louisville's 4-3. Clemson should win that game. You never know. They host Miami the next week. Miami stinks. They're 3-4. There's no way Clemson's losing that game. Then another home game, they get South Carolina. I would love to see the Gamecocks. I got a bunch of Gamecock buddies, so it would be really cool to see South Carolina knock off Clemson. But I don't think it's going to happen. Should be a fun game to watch, though. Then they have the ACC title game against the Coastal winner, which looks like it's going to be North Carolina. Unfortunately, if Clemson runs the table, goes undefeated, they're in. Alabama. If Alabama runs the table, wins the SEC championship game, they're in. They go to Baton Rouge this weekend at LSU, who's 6-2, playing really good football right now. That's at 7 o'clock in Death Valley. Not going to be a fun game. That's a great win, though, if Alabama goes over and takes care of business. Even though they should, they're better than LSU. But, again, that's a team playing hot right now. Tough place to play. So that would be a convincing win. Then at Ole Miss, who's 7-1. If Alabama wins that game, that's going to be an impressive win. Austin Peay at home, going to roll them. Then they get Auburn at home. They're going to roll them. If they run the table in the regular season and obviously win the SEC championship game, they're in. If they lose the SEC title game, they're out. So what happens, and I'll talk about TCU in just a second, but let's put them to the side real quick. What if Georgia wins, goes through the regular season undefeated, loses to Alabama in the SEC title game? I still think Georgia's in. You'd have to put Alabama in as the SEC champ, so Tennessee would be out, even though their one loss would be at Georgia. I don't think the SEC can get 3 teams in. Maybe Ohio State and Michigan both lose. It could happen if Clemson loses. TCU is undefeated right now, playing really good football. I think they need to win out and get some help, but still, it's going to be tough to leave out a Big 12 undefeated winner. That's just how it is. But the committee is not going to want TCU in there. They go to West Virginia this weekend, who are 3-4. They should win that game. Versus Texas Tech, who's 4-3. They go they're at Texas, who are 5-3. At Baylor, who's 4-3. And then at home against Iowa State. So I think TCU is going to lose at least one of those games. If they run the table, it might be in. They might be in. So there's a lot of things that could actually happen here, but it's going to be tough it's going to be fun to keep an eye on down the stretch. Listen, again, way too early to be talking about all this. I know, but it's fun to just look ahead 6 weeks ahead and figure out what could happen, who needs to lose to who for this team to get in, that team to get in. But if you're Georgia, you go undefeated in the regular season, you're in. I think same with Alabama, Ohio State. I'm actually losing track of what I'm trying to say here. But I do think that we could see 2 teams. I think there's a good chance we could see 2 teams, whether it's Georgia and Tennessee, Georgia and Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, if things, rolled the right way. Actually, probably not, because Alabama would. If Tennessee loses to Georgia, I don't know. I'm losing a train of thought here. None of that is in my notes. I went over everything in my notes right here. But No Oregon. I don't see Oregon getting in. I don't see USC getting in. Who else is in the AP that might have a chance to sneak in? I don't even have it pulled up anymore. I think the teams I talked about, though, of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams, I think the Final Four will come from that group of 7. What do you think? I know I kind of rambled and lost train of thought there towards the end, but what do you think? Leave a comment in the comment section. We love reading those. Thanks for watching this video. As always, stay tuned to the next video coming up right now, and I'll see you over on Dog Post.